Welcome back to Inside Ambition. I'm Alexandra George, and today I'm talking to Tammy Callanan. She's a graduating senior who studied business and engineering, and she spent 3 of her years at Drexel as a part of USGA, the student government. Hi, Tammy, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we have a lot to talk about. Students might not be aware, but you've been a part of enacting or starting to enact some pretty major change with what's going on in the world. So why don't you start by talking to us about the email that you sent to President Fry earlier last week?
Yeah, so I think that's a great place to start. So over the past couple weeks, we know that a lot of people have been very tired with the consumption of all the media that we're faced with every day. And I think there are a lot of things going on in our world right now that are exhausting a lot of people to a lot of varying degrees. So over the past couple weeks, with the Pass No Pass deadline coming up, we started to get some feedback, and we started to hear whispers of people being like, hey, I'm tired. Mm-hmm. I can't make this decision. I can't focus. My grades are going to suffer, and I'm suffering because of this, and I need help. So you hear those whispers of people saying, I really wish I had this extra time. I really wish I had access to, a couple extra days just to give me some space to think and digest my grades before choosing the Pass No Pass option, because the deadline was originally June 5th to make your decision. So, we heard that, had some conversations, myself, Blake, and Jen, we were mulling the idea over, trying to figure out what we could do. I'm no longer involved with USGA, but I wanted to make sure that the students that I was hearing were still having their voices heard by the administration. Mm-hmm. I still have those close ties with USGA. So, we drafted up an email. We requested that our senior leadership within the Drexel administration acknowledge the fact that our Black students are really emotionally and mentally drained. Mm-hmm. They're exhausted. They're being disproportionately impacted by everything going on. Mm-hmm. So with that acknowledged and in mind, we needed to act and make sure that students had extra time to make the decision on the Pass No Pass for their classes. That way, gave them an extra week. You take your finals, then decide.
Yeah.
We really wanted to just relieve some stress, and with the help of the Academic Affairs Committee through USGA, they helped to cross it over the finish line, and we were able to get that done. So.
And good thing you did, because it obviously worked out, and it's saving a lot of people some stress. So you keep mentioning USGA, but you're not a part of USGA anymore, and not to mention you're a graduating senior who's literally basically done. Right. So why don't you just talk about why you still decided to use your voice?
That's a great question. I think sometimes we feel stuck in the positions that we're in. We feel like we're required to have a position, to have our voices heard, to make mm-hmm. an impact. And I don't believe that to be true. I spent 3 years in USGA. I started off as sophomore class president, I think. I don't even remember. I started off as a sophomore president, became the vice president of the organization, and then for my 3rd year, I was the president of the organization. And I had such an amazing experience. Rocky. We had our ups and downs, but net positive overall. Yeah. And when I was thinking about my senior year, I was like, you know what? I think there are opportunities for other students to take the reins here, but I don't think that means that students in general can't be advocates. Yeah. So when I left USGA, people were like, oh, we're going to miss you so much. And I was like, well, bad news for you, because I'm not leaving. I'm not gone. Yeah. I'll be here, as a student advocate, because I think right now, especially, it's really important that we recognize the power that white women have with their voices. And I think if we can be confident in our convictions, we have a lot of power to advocate for people who have historically not had as much power, mm-hmm. In the systems that we exist in, especially in academia. So for me, it felt like a responsibility to continue to advocate, And I'm thankful to have had the space and energy to do so, especially in this time, because I know there are a lot of people that are really, really struggling, and anything I could have done to help, I would have. So, it doesn't take a position in an organization to make a change. It doesn't matter if it's student government. It doesn't matter if it's any organization on campus.
Yeah.
You don't need a position. Positions are great. I mean, they're great for building community. You meet great people. So many good things. Net positive overall.
Yeah.
But you have a voice on your own. You have power. You have agency.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I've always tried to convey to people.
Yeah, and I think that's really awesome, just life advice in general. Could you explain, now there's a group of student leaders that have gotten together to formulate a list of demands to send to the university. Could you talk about how that group was formed and how you organized that and orchestrated that plan and that process?
Yeah, I'm happy you asked. And this was an interesting development. I don't know if I expected it to end up this way. I don't really know what I expected, but it was a couple mornings ago. We had found out the National Guard was present on campus. I had talked to a few of my friends who are in some of the Black student organizations on campus, and the feelings were not good.
Yeah.
The reaction to the presence of the National Guard was not a good thing, understandably. I mean, it's threatening. It makes you feel unsafe if you don't feel safe to leave your house. I mean,
Yeah.
what is that when you're on a college campus, to not feel safe to walk around? So, again, hearing those anecdotes, it was like this responsibility to use the energy that I have in the position that I'm in to then advance the message to the university that this is not right. It was wrong to allow the National Guard to utilize any Drexel resources, whether they were large or small. It could have been a pen. A resource is a resource. So I knew it was my responsibility to make sure that message got communicated as clearly as possible and as quickly as possible. So, I utilized my Instagram, posted a bunch of videos of myself kind of talking through some things, posted some pictures, and people started to pick up the momentum, and they were like, hey, we really want to reach out. We want to help. What can we do? And I was like, you know what? Here's a template email. Here's the contacts you need. Push this out.
Yeah.
Just send it. All you have to do is copy, paste, and send it. That's it. So we started doing that. A lot of people started getting involved and reached out to some of the Black student organizations who were already doing great work, and just kind of merged efforts. Once we were able to get a group chat going, we started a GroupMe, started a form, sent it out to a bunch of organizations for support. And to no surprise, many student organizations picked up really quickly. They were like, yes, we're willing to support, we're willing to give energy. And, we just started meeting. We had 2 meetings through Zoom. It always amazes me how Drexel student organizations can come together. Obviously, awful circumstances, but it's definitely incredible to watch the unity that comes between these student organizations. And I think I don't like to say I organized that, right? I think it's like a facilitation.
Yeah.
There's someone who needs to take the minutes and someone who needs to do these little things that consume energy, like write the draft, get the group started with a draft, manage the Google Drive, send out the invites, start the group, like things like that, I think are things that take up energy. And that's when I keep referencing the extra energy I have, that's where that energy is going, because other people don't have the spare energy to give. So I tried to do what I could, but I think facilitation is a good way to approach it.
Yeah, and I think what you've created is really great. Could you just outline what the demands in the letter that you're asking students to send to the provost and senior leadership, what those demands are asking for?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we wanted to make sure that we were demanding that the university acknowledge and outwardly say that they are in full support of our Black student community, and that they are prioritizing that community's safety and well-being at all times. In general, what we tried to do was outline the list of demands in a way that kind of maintained three different threads, right? So the first thread was timeliness of university communication. The second thread was transparency of university communication. And the third thread was making sure that each communication had an action listed with it.
Mm-hmm.
So the demands themselves are a little bit more specific, and you can find that document. I'm happy to give that way people can look at it. But we really tried to make sure that we were emphasizing that any communication that comes out from the university be timely, transparent, and outline an action plan. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times the university is a little stagnant when it comes to its responses, and the responses that come out aren't quite clear, and they aren't quite as direct as we need them to be. And that's being generous. I'm being very light when I put it that way. We need an organization and an administration that is ready and willing to lead.
Yeah. We
need strong and firm leadership because our students need it, and our students deserve it. You know, it's hard to get emails that feel so cold, especially when you exist in a world as someone whose life isn't valued as highly as others, right? So when you exist daily like that and you get an email from your institution that is just cold to its core, it's like, how do you rationalize that? And what can we do as students to make sure we're saying, hey, this isn't good.
Yeah.
It's good, and we know you want to get better. We need you to get better. And we know you have the capabilities of doing that. So what's inhibiting that? What's holding you back from communicating with us the way you should be? So the demands really tried to focus in on those three pillars. There are obviously more details about supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, doing certain trainings for faculty, staff, our police department, our public safety department, stuff along those lines. Mm-hmm. But I know the leaders from the Black student organizations can definitely speak to all of those things a lot better than I can.
Yeah. And we will be having them on our show pretty soon, hopefully within the next week or two, to vocalize that a little bit more. But right now, what do you have to say to students who are looking to support? How can they help?
That's a great question. I think it depends on how much energy you have to spare. Because first and foremost, your brain comes first. Your mental health comes first. Your physical health comes first. So if you don't have any energy to spare, that's what the student advocates are for, mm-hmm. are to support students who might not have the energy to help in certain ways or to push certain emails or whatever it is. But on a smaller scale, sending an email is an amazing accomplishment. Mm-hmm. So if you can just send an email template out to the president, to the dean of student life, to Dr. Sahu, to all of these people, that's a huge accomplishment. And I think those things don't go unnoticed, especially when we do that in volumes. And I think another part that students can or should think about is how valuable their feedback is and how much the university needs and wants it. Mm-hmm. I say this and I feel like I'm biting my tongue a little bit because there have been times where I'm like, I don't even believe that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't believe it. But then I have conversations with senior leaders from the university, and I know that deep down they want to hear the feedback and they want to retain it and they want to change. I know sometimes students don't feel like they have the avenues for that, so I personally think that, any of the organizations that exist within the SCDI, great resources for advocacy, student government, of course. There are a lot of great organizations that can help propel your voice mm-hmm. if you don't quite know where to go. So looking at student organizations or, talking to administrators on your own if that's something you're comfortable doing, which as a student, you have all the power to do it. It just takes looking up the emails. Yeah. So yeah, I think, anything you can do is better than, actually, I don't even want to say that. Anything you can do is great. It can be an email, it could be taking time for yourself to rest, whatever it is.
Well, thank you for facilitating all of this and getting all these plans in motion. And I'm sure that a lot of these conversations are going to be continued to be had even long after you've graduated next week.
I hope so. I hope.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for taking the time to talk with me and share your story. And I will make sure to leave the email in our description.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Of course.